Teresa Gregorio, and I'm going to show you how to install a zipper in your cherry pie sweater. So if you watched our earlier video where we picked out the zipper together, you'll see that I have my zipper ready to go here. And my sweater all laid out nice and flat. There's just a few other tools we're going to need to be able to install this zipper. So one of them is some pins. We're going to need some small snips. We're going to need a needle and thread. And depending on if you have a sewing machine or not, we'll use that too, but you can do this absolutely without a sewing machine as well. So one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to confirm that our zipper is the length that we want it to be and it fits in our sweater. We're going to pin it down, we're going to baste it down, and then we're going to do the proper seaming. So that's going to depend on whether you have a sewing machine or not. So what we're going to do first here is I'm going to start pinning this down just to make sure that everything is good and I've bought the zipper length that I'm happy with. So I've laid it out here, and I'm going to start with the points that are the known points, right? So the very bottom of your sweater should line up with the bottom of your zipper, of course, which I will do here. There we go. And then, if you'll recall, when we measured for our zipper in the first place, we sort of had to unroll a little bit of this because it's curved up to the top neck. And if I'm happy with where it's hitting, then I can pin it down. Now, one of the things with the zippers, if it's a little too long, that's okay, because what you can simply do is bend back one of these like this underneath your fabric, if it was a little bit too long. In this case, I'm quite happy with the length, so I'll pin it down at the top neck here. And you can join me back in a few minutes once I've finished doing all this pinning up and down this sweater. Alright, we're back now, and I have pinned down both sides of my zipper onto my sweater, as you see here. So there's a few things I want to point out to you to maybe make your pinning job slightly easier as you go along. So as you'll recall when I said before, we start with our known points of the neckline and the bottom here, and sort of work inwards. One of the things that's going to start happening when you do that is that your zipper and your fabric will start buckling. You'll see a little bit here where some are higher and some are lower. And that's just what happens when you join up a stiff fabric, which is the zipper, with something that has a lot more give, like this knitted fabric. So that's just what happens. I mean, if you look at your sweaters at home, if there's a knitted sweater with a zipper, that's just the nature of the beast. So don't worry about it when you're doing it. Something else that you'll like to keep in mind is to line up both sides of the sweater. Now for me that was pretty easy because I decided to make this striped, so I could simply line up these stripes across from each other to make sure everything was even. But at the very least you can do like the top of your ribbing here and then make sure that your color work is lined up. And if you're very keen, you can sort of try and match up some of your shaping on each side just to keep everything nice and even. So everything is laid out great, everything is pinned down, so we've confirmed that the length is good, we've pinned it down, and now the next thing to do is to baste it. Basting is just throwaway stitches. It's just something that's temporary, that's going to keep it held in place so that when you do your proper stitches, nothing moves around on you. So something that you may want to do for your basting stitches is to choose a thread color that's different than the thread color you want for your ultimate seaming, so that you can pick out the basting afterwards. It's just a little bit of a tip. I'm going to start from the very bottom and work my way all the way up to the top with these big wide basting stitches, which is going to take a few minutes. So if you join me back in a few minutes, you'll see that I'll have both edges basted down and all of the pins removed, ready for seaming. I've done my basting. You can see my big wide basting stitches here running up both sides of the zipper. One thing we're going to do before we seam anything down for sure is to make sure that I've put my fabric a good distance from the zipper teeth. So to do that, I just unzip to make sure everything runs smoothly and then zip it back up again to make sure everything runs smoothly back up. So of course if you get any catches, you're going to have to redo that. And if you want something to help give you an idea of the distance, you can look at a garment that you have at home that has a zipper in it, just to give you a bit of an idea. Here I've put them in nice and close to the zipper teeth. They don't have to be that close. You could even buy a fancy zipper that you want to show off and seam it on top of your sweater, kind of like that rhinestone one that we saw in the first video. But at this point, we are now ready for this to go into the sewing machine. Now, just a point, you don't need a sewing machine. You can do this by hand, but because I have one, it's going to make it a lot faster to do. So we're going to take a little bit of a look at the sewing machine here and what I did, because I know the first time I sewed something into my knits, I was pretty nervous. It's fine. I've set it here to 2, which is a fairly medium length of stitch, not too tight, not too long. If I want it tighter, I could always run it through a little bit later. And of course I've made sure that it's just a straight stitch, so it's just number 1 straight stitch, nothing fancy. I haven't even put a zipper foot on, I'm just using my regular sewing machine foot here. And I'm going to do, of course, one side at a time. So unzip your sweater. And don't worry, it won't get caught, your foot won't get caught in the knitting. I was very nervous about that the first time I ever did this, but it works out fine. So we just set your needle in, and we can set to work. Now here you see my entirely seamed and installed zipper. So you'll see I've seamed it down with my machine along the edges here, simply because of the thread I used. Some of it is dark and some of it is light, so you can see some of it running up the outside there. I've made sure, with a little bit of fiddling, that my stripes line up as closely as I can get them to. And the final test is to unzip. Everything runs smoothly. And just to give you a little bit of a peek of the inside, here you can see I've unpicked the basting stitches. Everything is running up smoothly along the inside. And our cherry pie sweater is now ready to wear.